Thank you, everyone. We are back with our part two of the theory of change. And today we're going to be talking about the process. We're actually going to look at how to create your own theory of change. So let's address the definition of theory of change again by way of reminder. What exactly is a theory of change? A theory of change is a framework, is a methodology, a useful tool for creating, implementing, and also evaluating a planned change. That's my own definition. There are other definitions you would find, but this encompasses or is quite a comprehensive definition when you think about what theory of change is. So you use it to create, to implement, and to evaluate the change that your beneficiaries have experienced or are likely to experience. Like I said, we're going to now look at what each of us need to do if you're planning a theory of change. I'm going to give you like 7 steps. So here is step 1. The first step is to identify and define the problem you want to solve. And as I say that, I have to put a proviso here because generally, if we are whether you're a large charity or a small charity or a small social enterprise or a large social enterprise, what you do not want to do is to try and solve every problem that everybody has, because that's not going to work. So we need to identify certain problems that we want to solve or a problem that we can solve. And then we'll consider what our capabilities are to be able to solve that problem. So in doing that, you might want to ask a few questions that can help you to define the problem you want to solve. So you can ask questions like, who are those affected by a particular problem? There's something called a problem tree, which is you look at the symptoms and then you kind of keep backing up and asking the why until you get to the root of the problem. So somebody cannot get a job. You might say, well, why can they not get a job? You might discover that they don't know how to write a CV. Okay, why do they not know how to write a CV? Then you might discover that they did not go to school. Okay, so they cannot read very well or write very well. So why is it that they cannot read or write very well? Well, they had problems when they were children, and then you might discover that they actually have a disability. So instead of thinking, oh, they just cannot get a job, you discover after asking, there's something called asking also 5 whys. If you ask 5 whys, you get to the root of a problem. So you might decide to follow that kind of strategy where you see a problem, you ask why until you get to a particular area of that problem that you believe that you can solve. Whatever you do though, try and narrow down on a particular problem, or at least maybe 1 or 2 types of problems that you can solve, as opposed to wanting to solve problem for everyone, as I said. So you might also ask questions like, who is working to tackle this problem? The idea here is to analyze the situation or the conditions in which you're going to operate in. So as you're thinking about the problems you can solve, you're also thinking about every other issue around that problem. Who are the institutions that are affected by this problem or are working to solve this problem? That's a good one to ask. What are the barriers to change? Why is it so difficult for people to overcome this problem? Are there any types of conditions that are restricting people from overcoming this problem? So the example I gave about somebody who could not get a job, it could be that there is no longer a support system that existed years ago to help people writing CVs and to prep them for interviews. So that's why. Okay, so there is a lack of support there. So you discover that because you asked a question. What are the consequences of not solving this problem? It's another question to ask. So you're asking a lot of questions so that you can have a full understanding of what the problem is. Otherwise, we might take a very narrow view that restricts us from being able to effectively solve the issue because we don't have enough information. So you want to ask as many questions as possible to give you a comprehensive understanding of what the problem entails. That's when you then go on to the second section there, which talks about consider what you are capable of doing. Then you are thinking about, okay, what resources do I bring to the table when it comes to solving this problem? Do I have a good reputation? Do I have the expertise to solve this problem? Or do I know people who can solve this problem? Do I have the experience to solve this problem? Am I qualified? Maybe it might require some form of academic qualification. I don't know. It could be, are you qualified to solve the problem? Do you have the connections and the networks that can help you to solve the problem? Who do you need to work with to solve the problems? What are the opinions of people? What have you discovered that has been written? Are there any reports that have been written about this type of problem so that you have a in-depth understanding of what you're doing? So that's the first step. The first step is really analyzing the problem area in which you're going to be working in. It's really important. Once you get this part right, the next steps are going to be a little bit easier to solve. So that's step one. Now, step two is you got to pick a target group. For example, in the idea I gave us earlier about somebody who is unemployed, there are different age groups that are unemployed. Somebody could be over 50 and unemployed. Somebody could be over 30 and unemployed. Somebody could be 16 or 18 and be unemployed. So which group are you going to work with? Again, try and pick a group of people that you want to target. My experience with raising funds is that too many times want to raise funding in a very broad way. I'll say, oh yeah, I want to help all women. No, you cannot help all women because women have a variety of issues that they're dealing with. So you cannot help all women. To say you're going to help all women means that you're going to help women who have been domestically abused, women who have health issues, women who have educational issues, women who have spiritual issues, women who have emotional issues. You cannot help every woman. Okay, so you got to pick a group of people you want to help with the problem that you have chosen to solve. With the example we gave, you can choose to solve the unemployment issues for women over 50, for example. Or you might even narrow it down to say you want to solve the problem for BAME women over 50, or you might want to solve it for refugees over 50, refugee women over 50. You might want to solve it for single parent women over 50 who are unemployed, because then you are getting into very classic and specific type of problems that those target groups face. So you got to pick a target group, and the narrower it is, the easier it can be to raise funding. Let me say that again. The narrower your target group is, the easier it is to raise funds, because there are some funders that just won't fund you. So that means you're not wasting your time writing applications and trying to make it broad so you can have everyone in it. No, but then you would find there's specific funders. For example, there's specific funders that generally fund domestic violence against women. That's what they do. That's what they want to fund. There are specific funders that want to fund, that give funding for individuals over 60. There are funders that give for individuals over 70. That's just what they want to do. There are funders that fund educational projects and would not fund a health project, but they will fund educational project. So the narrower you can target the group that you want to work with, the better it's going to be for you. Then you can consider some common characteristics that those people have. In the example I gave, let's say you are trying to solve the unemployment problems for women over 50, then who are maybe BAME women or women who live in a particular location. Maybe they live in Leeds, or they live in Liverpool, or they live in particular deprived areas of London. Maybe that's what you want to do. Then you can consider what the characteristics are for those who live in, maybe they live in tower blocks in particular areas. So you're looking at women of any color and race that live in a particular area. Women who live in, single women who live in tower blocks in the most deprived areas of London. There are statistics for that. So you can look at the common traits that those people have, because they're going to be instrumental into how you can create your own theory of change and how your theory of change can become very valuable. Like I said, one of the reasons why we are covering this particular topic on theory of change is that I can see right now where funders are going towards. They're going towards the pathway where they're going to now request everyone to have a theory of change methodology present in their organization. So some people may target young people aged 11 to 16 from disadvantaged background, falling behind in school with a behavioral problem or maybe they've been actually told to leave the school, or they've been disciplined that way, or those who have been disciplined every day. If you're thinking about working, delivering a particular project, or you want to do your theory of change for a particular group of people who have certain types of conditions, you could also look at that as well. Maybe they have a particular health condition, you could look at that as well. Then they will have certain characteristics. Choose your group based on age, location, maybe even education or knowledge or attitude or certain types of behaviors. Sometimes people have projects just to support single parents whose children have committed knife crime, for example. See, so you are targeting a particular group. So you consider the kind of characteristics that those women may have or not have. It's very important for us to look at those two steps as the building block for the next 5 steps that I'm going to talk about. So this is step 2. Remember, step 1 was identifying and defining the problem you want to solve, considering what you're capable of doing, what you're bringing to the table, so to speak. And then you go on to look at the target group that you actually want to help. Now, the third part of this is something called impact. Now, impact is, and I like the way that the MPC described it. It said, impact is a sustained effect on individuals, families, or an environment. Impact is a sustained effect. What is the overall effect of your project or activities on that target group for the community or for families or in that environment? We are talking about impact, though. You're thinking a few things. Number one is you're considering a long-term effect. Impact is not something that just takes place within 2 months or 3 months or even 6 months. Sometimes it can take as much as 5 years to see the impact of a particular decision or a particular policy or a particular drive or project or group of projects. So when you talk about impact, that's the first thing. It tends to be long term. And we're going to talk about the short term one in a moment. That's what we get to next. Now, impact is also something as important and meaningful like reducing offending or increasing employment or improving well-being. You will notice that you cannot improve well-being, generally speaking, in 1 week. If you want to improve the well-being of a community that is suffering from pollution that is released by certain maybe businesses or manufacturing plants within the area, and that manufacturing plant is now going to change their policy to release less waste into the atmosphere. That's going to take years for them to even get there. And that's going to take years for the impact of that decision to be felt within the community. So you are talking long term. Now, impact is also something that your target group will achieve themselves. There comes a time when you can have projects, you can have services, you can deliver talks, you can do everything possible from your point of view. But impact is a decision that the people you're trying to help now make. You would observe an impact in the lives of people you're trying to help when they decide they want to do something about it. So let's take an example. There is, for example, a very good healthy option which is free apparently in most areas of the world now. It's called a park run. A park run is where you go to run a 5K every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. All right, so that is it's a process that somebody implemented to help improve well-being. Now, as good as a park run is, the impact of a park run in a specific location will only be observed once many people in that community decide to engage in park run and follow it for a lengthy period. If you run 5K this Saturday and you don't show up for the next 1 month or the next 6 months or the next 8 months, there's not going to be any impact in that person's life. So, but when the community decides that, we want our health improved and we want to start exercising, being in the outdoors, having a lot of cardio and all the social benefits of being with a group of people. Once the community decides to do that, then the impact will be seen within the next 2 years, within the next 3 years. In fact, even if you think about this, when people talk about weight loss, the women on the platform will be able to bear witness with this in particular, because many of these things are targeted to women. I don't know why, but it's targeted towards women. When people talk about weight loss, there are some organizations or businesses or trainers that try to influence people to lose weight within 3 months or lose weight within 1 month. I just think that that's just bad news, because if, let's say, you're a 40-year-old and it's taking you 20 years to become overweight, why on earth do you want to lose that weight in 1 month? No, you should plan to lose that weight over 2 years, because if you lose that weight over 2 or 3 years, you are more likely to sustain that kind of program than an abuse of your body over 3 months or 1 month just to get some kind of result. So really, impact is always long term, and impact is something you will contribute to. Impact is something that your projects contributes to and cannot own fully. What I mean by that is this: if you're talking about changing the well-being of a particular community, and you want to have that kind of impact of where less people are obese in the area, well, it's going to take the efforts of what you are doing, like the park run. Then it's going to take the effort of the schools. It's going to take the effort of parents. It's going to take the effort of shops and supermarkets in the area. It's going to take the effort of all those people to have an impact. So impact is not an outcome that one organization reaches. No, it tends to be a combination of policies and work ethics and programs that creates an impact. So impact is something you will contribute to. I'll tell you something else about impact right now. Yeah. The reason why this is important, and we can look at examples of impact like I said earlier, reducing reoffending, increasing employment, a change in the law maybe, or even increasing well-being. The reason why we are talking about this step here, step 3, which means you need to think about what kind of impact you want to have, is because from here on, what we're going to start doing is you're going to start working backwards from your impact. You're going to go from, okay, this is the impact we want. We want to increase employment in this area. All right, so what are the outcomes, which we're going to look at next, which is the next step, step 4? What are the outcomes that I need to observe to point towards the impact I want to see? Okay, that's one. Then we're going to look at what are the activities I need to do to ensure I have the outcomes that leads to the impact. That's the theory of change right there. So going back to this point in step 3 is about impact. It's about what the beneficiaries will do themselves. And impact is always long-term. And when you're writing or thinking about your impact, try to make it short. Like I said earlier, reduce, we want to be part of the group of people that reduce offending or reoffending, or that improves well-being, or that increases employment, or that enables healthy eating. Whatever it is, make your impact statement very short. Now, we've gone from the first thing we said, we're going to identify the problem. The second thing we're going to do, we're going to choose a target group. The third thing, we're going to have an impact statement. That's really important. And that then moves us forward to the outcomes. When I show you the theory of change diagram in a moment, well, in a few minutes, you will observe that you would see impact, then you will see the outcomes, then you will see the activities. Because it's the activities that produces the outcomes, and the outcomes produce the impact. So what are outcomes? Outcomes are changes that your beneficiaries experience in the short term. Remember, impact in step 3, that your impact statement is what will be experienced in the long term. However, the outcomes are what you will experience in the short term. Very important. So, outcomes will always happen before impact happens. Let me say that again. Outcomes happen before impact because outcomes are short term. Impact are long term. So the example that I gave you about working with the over 50s who are unemployed, what kind of short-term changes would you like to see in their lives? Well, it could be you want them to acquire a particular set of skills which they can do within 3 or 4 months. Somebody can learn. Somebody who can read and write can learn to write a CV within 3 or 4 months. So you might say, well, in the short term, the outcome we want to see is that people are able to produce their own CVs. Or it could even be for that particular group of people and projects that you're running, you might say, well, what we want to see in the next few months is people attending at least 2 interviews in 3 months. That's a good outcome. For somebody who has not even had a job for 5 years or 4 years. Attending 2 interviews is a good outcome for a project. You might say, well, the behavior, we want to see a change in behavior and attitude. That's a good thing because, like I said, sometimes people have not had a positive outlook about life because they've not been working for so many years. They feel down, they're very demotivated, and they have poor self esteem. But with your project, the outcome you're going to see within 3 months and 6 months is that they are going to improve their outlook on life. That's a good outcome to pursue. And you need to ask those kind of questions. What assets will people gain or retain in the next few weeks, or in the next 6 months, or in the next 4 months, or in the next 5 months? Now, remember that outputs are short term, impact are long term. So, this is what you want to see in the short term. And that would depend on the kind of engagement that you have with people, or the level of interaction that you have with people, or the number of interaction that you have with people. You can decide that, okay, if we want to observe this high level impact in the next 5 years, we need to deliver certain types of activities, which is the next thing now. We're going to deliver certain types of activities 3 or 4 times a year to achieve this outcome, which will lead to this particular impact. All right, so let's go on and take a look at activities. So now let's back up a bit just so that we are in key with what we're doing here. Remember, it is impact, which is more long term. So we back up from impact and we say, well, if I want to see this level of impact, if I want to see an increase in employment within a particular group of people in a particular location, then I need to make sure that within a few months we are observing particular types of outcomes. Outcomes are the experiences that your beneficiaries have from participating in your projects. So what kind of outcomes can that be? It could be acquiring new skills and knowledge, change in attitude, change in behavior, more self-aware, more they feel a lot more boost, and they see the future as a credible future. They are seeing themselves as being able to reach more goals than they've ever achieved before. Those are outcomes that you can observe in the lives of people. Now, in order for your beneficiaries to experience those outcomes, then you have to decide what activities you are going to engage in to help them to experience those outcomes. This section here is really about, this step here is really about, what are you going to do now? What projects are you going to run that is going to ensure your beneficiaries achieve those outcomes or experience those outcomes, which will lead to the impact that you wanted to see. See, now everything is now falling in place. So you decided first on the impact you wanted to see, then the outcomes that will lead to that impact, and then you're backing off and saying, okay, what kind of activities do we need to do? For example, you can say, oh, we're going to do CV writing workshops, or we are going to do one-to-one mentoring, or we are going to do a drop-in service, or whatever it is. Because you know where you are going, by way of impact you want to see in the society, or your impact statement, then you can decide on the activities that is most likely able to produce the outcomes that you want. That's why when you complete applications, they will ask you, what are the outcomes? What's the outcomes of your project? The reason why they're asking is because they want to know that the person reading the application wants to know whether the activities you are engaged in can actually or is capable of producing the impacts or is capable of producing the outcome that you have specified in your application. So it all works together. This is why I love the theory of change, because if you have not, first of all, identified the problems you want to solve and picked a target group, everything else is just going to fall apart. So that's why you need to have engaged with, in your process of discovery or identifying what problems you want to solve, you could engage at that point with your beneficiaries and start talking to them and hearing from them, so that when you come to decide on the activities, you know the activities are going to address the problems that they want solved, and also is going to achieve the outcomes that you want, which will lead ultimately to the impact. So what kind of activities or projects will you deliver? My time is going. What kind of projects or activities will you deliver? How many of them will you deliver? And who will be the ones delivering this to achieve those outcomes? What are the key features of your activities? What will these features look like? How often and how long will you deliver to the groups or individuals? Like I said, who is delivering it? One more important thing that you should ask here on the activities is, how will people know your projects exist? It will amaze you that some people go get funding. They've actually written a good application. They've got the money, but they don't have the beneficiaries. Oh man, that is ridiculous. You've got the funding, you don't have the beneficiaries. You know what that tells me? That really tells me that you didn't speak to the beneficiaries in the beginning. So now that you've got the funds, you're now scrounging around trying to look for beneficiaries because they were not communicated with, they were not engaged with in the beginning. Because really, if you have a project, if you're delivering a project that your beneficiaries want, there's no reason why straight after the project that you are not able to, straight after the funding, that you're not able to just start the project with the people that you've been conversing with. So it's important for us to engage the beneficiaries anyway. So here in this step 5 is all about the activities you're going to do, how many they are, and how they're going to be delivered. So let's back up a bit before we go up to step 6 and 7. Actually, we'll back up to step 1. So take a look at it. Step 1, we talked about the problem you want to solve. Step 2, the group of people you want to work with, your target group, the impact you want to have, the outcomes that will lead to that impact, because impact is long-term, outcome is short-term, and outcomes are what you can achieve by delivering your own projects and activities. All right, so the next step is the activities that you are going to engage in. All right, step 6. We're nearly done. It's I think I've got 2 or 3 more steps. This step is important. I call it the outsiders. Who do you need outside of your organization to ensure that the project or the projects you want to deliver are going to work? I say, well, for example, who are the outside agencies? Sometimes your referral agencies are very critical to the success of your project, because they're the ones who are going to actually bring you the individuals that are going to attend your project, or the individuals that need your projects or the individuals that you're trying to reach. Many times when we talk about delivering a project or having an impact or an outcome, we tend to believe we should go directly to the group that we want to help. That's true. And that's a good thing. I think you use a combination of going directly to the group, but also going directly to discuss with influencers who have access to large numbers of individuals that you want to reach. For example, in the one we talked about, the reaching, helping unemployed people over the ages of 50 who live in a particular location. Why don't you go to agencies that exist for the over 50s and see if they can pull in for you the numbers, the high numbers of people that are already registered with them that may need your projects? Why don't you do a partnership with them? In other words, we're now looking at the outsiders that need to help us. For example, your funders are outside organizations that you would need. How can you persuade agencies to refer people to you? How can you persuade your funders to give you the money that you need? What factors are outside your immediate control? You're going to have to ask those questions, because when you ask these questions, then you can answer them, or you can put certain measures in place to make sure that your project actually works, because these are some of the reasons why projects fail. And the purpose of a theory of change is to reduce failure. That's something I just came across just now. Actually, the purpose of a theory of change. I was thinking about this before we began. And I said to myself, hang on, actually, a theory of change carries with it some elements of business planning. It's not called that, but it does, because the questions we're asking are very similar to what you will ask in a business plan. Only a theory of change deals with it in a different kind of way. So you're asking, what is outside of my control? Oh, if I cannot get the agencies to send people to me, what am I going to do? That's why I was advising you that you go directly to some people, and then at other times you use an outside agency to help you. What factors are outside your immediate control that can hinder the success of your own project? For example, what are some of the things that could be going on in the lives of my beneficiaries that can prevent them from attending my workshops? So it could be transport, could be one of the reasons, or finance could be one of the reasons, health could be one of the reasons, lack of support from a spouse could be one of the reasons. How and what can you do, or what are you able to do to resolve that? If, let's say, okay, I'll give you a good one. If, let's say, you are delivering a project for older people in a nursing home, you're going to make sure that the times you want to deliver the project fits into the timetable of the nursing home. Otherwise, there and then, the project fails, because you don't have the time, because your time doesn't align with the time the outside agency or organization is prepared to give you. It's important that you ask these questions so that you can find ways around it. What else could be going on in their lives that could ensure the success of the project? Are there any government training or schemes that could affect your projects? Are there local organizations that you would like to be engaged in this, or you would like to support this? Have you spoken to them? Very important. All right. Now we get to step 7. We're nearly there. I think it's 2 more steps. Step 7 is your assumptions. This is important. This is where you ask questions like, what can really go wrong? Okay, have I got enough beneficiaries to come on this project? What are the parts of this project that is worrisome? What are the parts of it that is really concerning? Okay. How long will it take me to get the funding? If I don't get the funding, what other alternatives do I have? Can I implement a paid version as well as a funded version? Can I really deliver what I say? Can I reach the outcomes that I want within the time that I want it? Will it even lead to the impact that I want to see? What resources do I need? And I thought about everything. This way you have to critically look at the whole project and ask questions that are going to help you to decide whether ultimately you're going to be able to deliver what you want to do. Will this project distract people from something else that is important? It's a good question to ask. Have the views of the beneficiaries and the experiences and perspectives, have they really been considered in this project or not? Once you get all those answers together, then you put in your diagram, which is the final part of the theory of change. This is where you can draw your theory of change. And having a diagram, like I said earlier, and what I've done today is to show you a process. Now, it's going to be difficult for you to engage in the process without you can engage in the process without having a diagram, but you cannot have a diagram without engaging in the process. That's important for us to know. So this is where you have a diagram, and you have a diagram because it gives you a quick picture in a very simple way, and also a diagram helps you to communicate. In this small box on the right side here, where you can see this theory of change diagram is very small. It probably more look like a logic model, but it's a theory of change. Output, outcomes, and impact. Now, let me now show you a better theory of change diagram right here. Now, look at this. So this theory of change is actually dealing with two. Sometimes people say theory of change and then it kind of mixes up with the logic framework. But okay, let's consider this. We've been talking about the activities that we want to do. Remember, this is where we're going. We're going for the impact on this side. And what you will notice is that though this has two projects, and that's why I like it, I thought, because all theory of change diagrams are a little bit different. Here you have a line of accountability. We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's start from impact. So that's the impact you want to see. You want to increase employment or increase the well-being in a particular location. The line of accountability or accountability line is that part where the people, the beneficiaries themselves, are the ones who would have to work to achieve the impact. There's nothing you can do here. It's up to people to have had such a transformation in their lives. They've seen such a transformation in their life that they've taken upon themselves the responsibility to actually experience the impact. But before that, you can see here, what you have is intermediate outcomes. What are the outcomes that the beneficiaries can experience right here? And before that is the outputs. The outputs are the number of times that your activities are delivered. So you have the activities here and the inputs right here. Well, you have funding, then you have other inputs like staff, other resources that you input to engage in the activities, or this is what we can term to be the projects that you're going to be delivering. the number of times you're going to deliver those projects, which is the output, the number of people you're expecting to attend. This is the quantifiable part of the theory of change. And then the outcomes that they're going to experience. Once they've experienced those outcomes, they take it upon themselves to be responsible for the impact they want to see in their lives. So that's a theory of change diagram right there. We are going to pause, and if anyone has questions, we'll be able to answer that. Otherwise, please, if you're watching this on our social media, then do subscribe to our channel and contact us if you want us to give you a hand. We offer consultancies on this topic. Yeah, so we are going to pause.